Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So the case that we are covering today is another creepy teacher. Today we are talking about a disgusting woman named Hayley Clifton Carmack, who seemed to have a thing for young, underdeveloped teenage boys. And she was a teacher, and she would walk around her classroom in very revealing, skimpy outfits. She would bend over, her cleavage would be on show. She would flirt with her young male students, and she loved all of the attention that she got. She even got the unflattering nickname of the camel toe teacher. And then one day she decided to take it one step further, and she entered into a sexual relationship with one of her students. And then one thing happened after another. The young boy's dad even got involved, and then Hayley ended up fleeing to Texas to try and evade the law. She wanted to be able to get away with her despicable crimes, and would she get away with them? Well, we're going to talk about all of that today, so let's jump in. And I just want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, and that is Midas Merch. And I have been playing Midas Merch for well over a year now. It has literally become part of my daily routine at this point. I am always merging and evolving a few cute and adorable creatures when I'm taking breaks from my research. And my latest favorite discovery is my lantern fox named Sparkles. I mean, isn't it just so cute? Look. And you guys know that I am a huge fantasy geek. You want to see my bookcase full of all of my fantasy books. I love escaping into a fantasy world, whether it's a book or a game. And speaking of books, if any of you have any fantasy book recommendations, let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking for a new series to read. And if you guys love fantasy worlds as much as I do, I know you are going to love this game, because my favorite character by far is Nyx, the goddess of night. She's dark, sassy, full of secrets. My favorite type of fantasy character. She's also the villain in the game. Each time you play, you peel back another hidden layer of her backstory. It's all one big mystery, and it's so engaging. And I've got some exciting news for you, because you all know that spooky season is my favorite time of year. And this month, starting October 23rd, Midas Merch is opening their amazing Halloween Haunted Gardens, which is a Halloween themed area filled with spooky cute creatures, deadly plants, eerie tombstones, even trapped souls you can free. And best of all, you will unlock the cutest and scariest, adorable little Halloween creatures that you can bring back to your island, such as the spirit turtle, the spellbound fox, and my personal favorite, the black cat. I mean, just look at how adorable and spooky it looks at the same time. It's so cute. And the game is free to download and completely ad-free. And something that I love is that it works offline. So I love that I can just play Midas Merch anytime, anywhere. And from the comments I receive when I talk about Midas Merch, I know so many of you already play this game and love this game, which is just absolutely amazing that we are all part of this Midas Merch community. And if you are not playing Midas Merch, what are you waiting for? I highly recommend that you go check it out. And especially for my community here on this channel, the first 200 people to download the game through my link or the QR code will receive an exclusive black cat from the Haunted Gardens, which is rare, powerful, and super cute in a spooky way, and even comes with my name on it, which I just absolutely love. So don't miss out on the amazing exclusive gift. You can download the game for free by using the link in my description box. And using that link rather than going to the App Store really does help out this channel, because it lets Midas Merch know that you came from this video. So thank you again to Midas Merch for sponsoring today's video, but thank you to every single one of you watching right now, because truly without all of you guys, I wouldn't get opportunities like this. And now let's jump into today's case. Hayley Clifton was born on the 20th of November, 1997, making her a Scorpio, and she grew up in Waynesville, Missouri, where the rest of today's case takes place. And growing up, Hayley had a pretty normal childhood. Her parents did get divorced when she was younger, and her mom did get remarried. And Hayley went through just the normal struggles of a parent remarrying and then having this blended family. But Hayley, in the end, she actually loved it. She was one of 7 siblings. She loved having this big family. She loved spending time with her family. And they were a very close family. They had a very close bond. It is said that Hayley, she loved being outdoors. She loved cooking. She loved anything creative. And when Hayley was in high school, she definitely was one of the popular kids. She became popular very quickly, and it's very evident in today's case that she doesn't let that go. Hayley is definitely an adult that is stuck in high school, that wants to constantly relive their high school days. And it is said that Hailey, when she's in high school, her looks would get her a lot of attention from the other boys in her school. And Hailey absolutely loved this. She loved being the center of attention, especially when it came to her looks. And this is definitely a trait that Hailey would continue to have for a disturbingly long time. Hailey, she also had a lot of friends. Like I've already said, she loved being the center of attention. She would do pretty much anything to have everyone's eyes on her. And other than that, there's not really much to report from Hailey's time in high school. She graduated from high school in 2016 and she went on to study for her degree at the University of Arizona. Now, this is when something very significant happens, because it was around this time when Hailey met another teenager by the name of Chance Carmack, and the two of them quickly start dating. And Chance was actually 4 years younger than Hailey at the time. So Hailey was around the age of 21, which meant that Chance was around the age of 17. So the two of them, they are dating, and within no time at all, they are married, and they quickly welcome their first child into the world. And they are incredibly young parents. So Hailey, she's still 21, Chance is still 17, and they are married and they already have one child. And then 2 years later, they actually go on to have another child. So now they have 2 daughters, and Hailey is now a mom of 2. And they were this happy little family. Her husband Chance started working as a real estate agent. He was also an amateur MMA fighter, and you can actually see some of his profiles online. And Hailey lived a pretty normal life. She'd never been in trouble with the law. She had a few speeding tickets, but other than that, she was a pretty good upstanding citizen. And there's just nothing really to report. No suspicious activity, nothing. But then we get to 2022, and this is when everything changes, because something very significant to today's case happens, and that is that Hailey gets a job as a teacher, and things go quickly downhill from here. Now, we don't actually know how long Hailey was planning on being a teacher. Was this something that she always wanted to do? Was it a job that she just kind of fell into? We don't know. All we know is that she starts working as a teacher when she is 24 years old. So this is a few years after she has gotten her degree. She applies for a job at a high school in Missouri, and it was Lakeway High School to be specific. She goes through all of the interviews and stuff, and the interview panel were apparently very impressed by Hailey. She seemed to tick all of the boxes. No red flags came up at all in that interview, and Hailey got the job as a teacher. She was actually going to be the maths teacher. And when I first found out that she was the maths teacher, I was like, what the hell is with all of these math teachers that end up being creepy? No offense if you're a maths teacher. Like, I know not all maths teachers are creepy, but do you remember the case of Rebecca Joins? She was a maths teacher. So Hailey's students, their ages ranged between 14 and 18. And as soon as Hailey started her job, she impressed her fellow colleagues. They noticed straight away how hardworking she was, how dedicated to her job she was, how much of a bond she formed with some of her students. Like, she seemed like a really good teacher. You can also see a teacher profile of Hailey from around this time. And in the profile, she was asked like what her position was, which she said maths teacher. She was asked how many years she had been working, to which she said that this was her first year. And then she was also asked what was one thing that she was looking forward to that year. And she replies, creating opportunities for students to find success in math after implementing growth mindset strategies that they will use to better approach mathematics. And unfortunately, as we will soon find out, Hailey also planned to implement some other very creepy and disturbing strategies on her students to get their attention. Because just a few months into the job, this is when some very serious warning signs start to appear from Hailey's behaviour. And that is actually something that really baffles me about today's case, is that literally she turns into a predator straight away. She doesn't bide her time. She doesn't like kind of wait to see if she can get away with things. She doesn't waste any time. And I know we don't have any evidence of this, but I just can't help but think, has she done this before? Like, has she been creepy to teenage boys before? Did that give her confidence to act straight away when she got into this new job? Was this her plan all along? Was this the initial reason why she wanted to become a teacher in the first place? And obviously we don't know any of the answers to those questions, but that is just where my mind goes. So she started to display very concerning warning signs pretty much straight away after only like a couple of months of working in this new school. And what were these warning signs? Well, Hayley, she's currently 24 years old, she soon developed the reputation of the so-called hot teacher. The male students that were in the school, especially the male students that she was teaching, they found her very attractive. They made comments about the way she looked. They made very sexualized comments towards her. They made comments that were quite frankly inappropriate and not okay. Not okay in any setting. And obviously it's Hayley's job as the teacher to, number one, shut these comments down, to teach her students that it's not okay to speak to women or anyone like that, because no one should feel like they have the right to sexualize other people against their will. It's inappropriate on every single level, especially in a school setting. But did Hayley ever shut down any of these comments? Did she ever reprimand any of her students? No, of course she didn't. She actually loved getting these comments. She loved getting the attention because remember, this is what she loved in high school. She loved getting all of the attention and the comments about her looks, and she pretty much would do anything to always have attention on her. Well, now she's almost reliving her high school experience. However, the biggest difference now is that she's the adult in the situation. So the male students, they would comment on her figure. They would say how good looking she was. They would say things like, "Oh, miss, you're so sexy. Oh, miss, you've got a nice butt." And instead of Hayley shutting down these comments or even just ignoring them, she would like flirt back. She would look at whatever student said the comment and she would give them like a cheeky little grin or like a flirty wink. She would also pose for the teenage boys. She would pout at them. And it's like, what the actual hell? Like, this is not okay. This is just so inappropriate and creepy. And because she was almost egging on these teenage boys, the comments became more frequent because the young boys were obviously getting the reaction that they wanted from Miss Carmack. And the young teenage boys, they couldn't believe that their teacher was actually acting like this back at them. And in order to play up to this character even more, it wasn't long before Hayley started wearing more revealing outfits at school. And these outfits were extremely inappropriate for a teacher to be wearing in a teaching school setting. They were extremely tight. They basically revealed her figure. They were low cut. She would have her full cleavage on display. She would wear extremely tight leggings to the point where they were probably 2 sizes too small, because literally it has been reported that her whole outline of her genitalia could be seen. And it's like, why are you as a teacher wearing that to go and teach teenage boys or students in general? And when she was wearing like a low cut top or a low-cut dress, she would actually bend over in front of the young teenage boys, and the teenage boys would be staring at her cleavage and she would be loving all of the attention because that's exactly what she wanted. She would also wear extremely tight t-shirts and her nipples would be on full display. She probably wasn't wearing a bra. And the students would say things like, "Oh, Mrs. Carmack has got her headlights out." And then because of the whole extremely tight legging situation where everything was on show, Hayley soon got the nickname of the camel toe teacher because, yeah, you could see everything. And that's not exactly an appropriate nickname for anyone, but especially a teacher. But apparently Hayley loved having this nickname. She actually made sure that her camel toe was on display. And something that I found extremely funny when I was researching this case is that if you Google the camel toe teacher, guess whose name and picture pops up first? Well, of course, it's Hayley Carmack from today's case. And I just think that that is funny, that she will be forever known as the camel toe teacher. So she's not only known as the camel toe teacher in her own school, she's known as the camel toe teacher worldwide. So as you can imagine, it didn't take long for Hayley to get a certain reputation around the school. So not only was she known as the hot teacher, she was known as the flirty teacher, the sexy teacher, the teacher that loved her body being on display. And word of this soon got back to the other teachers in the school, which is just crazy to me that it had to take that long for word to spread around the school about her reputation for it to finally reach other teachers' ears. Because it's like, hello, if you are teaching in the same school as her, surely you can see with your own eyes that she is, number one, dressing inappropriately for school. But clearly some of the teachers in this school just turned a blind eye. They didn't want to deal with it. So anyway, Hayley's reputation has started to spread around the school that she wears revealing clothing, that she's the flirty teacher. So she ends up being dragged into the principal's office, and she was told that she needed to stop this immediately. She needed to dress more appropriately. She needed to stop encouraging these teenage boys. She needed to shut these comments down, and she just needed to change her behaviour. She needed to act like an adult. But did Hayley stop? No. Even though she was dragged into the principal's office, which is her boss, and her boss has literally told her she needs to change, she doesn't. She continued on wearing extremely inappropriate and revealing clothing. She continued on to flirt with her male students. She continued to be completely inappropriate. But not just that, it gets worse. And I'm like, how does it get worse? Literally, the other teachers and the principal are now aware of her behaviour. How is she so emboldened that she continues to get worse? Because now she starts to discuss extremely inappropriate topics with her male students, which include her own sex life. And I'm just like, what the actual hell? How is she getting away with this? So she would literally talk to her male students about her sex life with her husband. She would air out all of the dirty laundry. She would say about what they did, what they liked, what they didn't. She would get into the nitty-gritty details of her sex life. And I'm like, number one, no one wants to hear about that. But number two, what the actual hell? But number three, why does she think that she can even get away with this? Because she's a maths teacher. She's not even a biology teacher where she could maybe plausibly use an excuse. Oh, I'm just teaching the students about body anatomy and sex and blah, blah, blah. She's a maths teacher, although she's definitely not a very good maths teacher because she can't even do simple maths of, oh, I'm 25, these boys are 14, maybe 16. How much of an age gap is that? Oh, I know. It's enough of an age gap for it to be illegal. And I'm not sure if word ever got back to the other teachers or the principal that she was discussing her sex life with her students, but if it did, she never got punished for it in any kind of way. She was just allowed to continue, and she just carried on with her job of being a maths teacher. So we now get to the fall of 2023. This is the very beginning of Hayley's second year at being a maths teacher. She is now 25 years old, and this is when something very significant to this case happens. Because she's now been at this school for a year, she has been incredibly inappropriate, flirty, all of the wearing of the revealing clothing and everything, that has been going on for a year. And even though she was told to stop, that she needed to change, she never did, and she still has a job, which is just mind-blowing in itself. So she has been able to get away with all of that behaviour for a year. Well, this is when Hayley decided to take things one step further, because she starts to get very close to one particular student. And this student we will refer to as boy A. He was only 16 years old, meaning that he's still a child. And it's not exactly clear how this close relationship between the two of them started. I mean, the fact that it starts pretty much straight away in Hayley's second year of teaching, I would assume that Hayley and boy A did have some contact in her first year. Maybe he was a student of hers in that first year. So maybe this so-called close relationship had actually been developing for a whole year, and now it starts to go one step further, because it is thought that Hayley, or Mrs. Carmack, would show boy A in particular a lot of attention. She would show him extra attention compared to the other teenage boys. She would always flaunt her body around him. She showed him special interest, which is just so incredibly disturbing, because what Hailey is doing here is she is grooming boy A. And that's why, even though we don't have any evidence of this, I do believe that this relationship between the two of them probably did start in Hailey's first year, because that's normally how grooming starts. It normally is very slow. The predator is normally extremely patient, and that's what I believed happened in this case. Hailey would keep boy A behind in her classroom so she could get extra close to him, so she could further develop this so-called relationship between the two of them, so she could make boy A comfortable around her. One thing led to another, and we don't know the exact details here, but it wasn't long into this second year of Hailey teaching at this high school that Hailey, or Mrs. Carmack, and boy A started to have sex. And I hate even saying that, and I have clarified this in so many of these cases now that we have done, but this is not sex. No. This is statutory rape. This boy is under the age of consent in the state of Missouri, which is 17, and this boy is only 16. But not just that, this 25-year-old woman is this 16-year-old boy's teacher, meaning that it wouldn't actually matter if he was 17 or 18 even. He is still her high school student, and it is completely illegal. But it turns out that he's underage anyway because he's 16, so it doesn't actually matter. This is illegal any way you look at it. This is rape. This 16-year-old boy is not at the age where he can actually give consent to this. But Hailey didn't care, so she is now raping boy A. And unbelievably, she is raping boy A inside of her classroom in the high school. And it blows my mind. I'm like, what the actual hell? I know I've said that so many times already in today's case, but in the classroom, in the school, where anybody could see them, walk in on them. And that is why my gut is telling me that Hailey has possibly done this before, because those are not the actions of a first-time paedophile. You know, you would expect Hailey to maybe meet boy A outside of school hours, somewhere private, somewhere where she could control the environment so no one would catch them. But no, she's raping him inside of a classroom. And things go on like this for a while. Hailey would keep boy A behind. She would rape him in her classroom. And then Hailey would go back home and play happy families to her husband and her two children. And Hailey, when she was at home, she was obviously acting like none of this was happening. And her two children, they are basically like toddler age, like very young child age. And it's just crazy that Hailey, when she's at work, she is literally raping a child, and then she goes home to her own children. And of course, Hailey's husband, Chance, has no idea that any of this is going on. He was just getting on with his life, getting on with his family life, being a good dad. But it didn't take long for Hailey and Chance's marriage to start struggling. And we don't have any details about this. We don't actually know what the struggles were or who was pulling away from who. But either way, you would have to assume, because of what Hailey's doing at work, i.e. raping a child, being a paedophile, this must have been taking a toll on her marriage, even though Chance, the husband, he didn't have a clue what was going on. And it turns out that the problems in the marriage, they were not able to be resolved. And Hailey and Chance decided that it would be better if they separated. So Chance files for divorce. And Hailey agreed to this. The two of them agreed to share custody of their two children, and Hailey moved out of the family home and went to rent an apartment all by herself. And whilst all of this was happening, while she was going through a divorce and moving out, which would have been turmoil, it wouldn't have been easy, the whole time she is still raping boy A. Yeah, she doesn't ever stop. She continued to have sex with boy A inside of her classroom, which absolutely baffles me. I have no idea how she was getting away with this, because this happened on so many occasions. I mean, I assume it was after school hours, but even still, even if it is after school hours, there are still people in the school. But it was around this time when boy A actually starts telling his friends about his so-called relationship with Mrs. Carmack. So naturally, word started to spread around the school. However, Hailey was apparently unfazed by this. She wasn't worried in the slightest, because unbelievably, Hailey started asking boy A's friends to act as lookouts whilst she raped boy A inside of her classroom, which means that Hayley is now raping boy A in the middle of school hours. And she is essentially employing other children to stand guard whilst she sexually assaults another child. It is absolute insanity. Hayley also started filling boy A's head with a load of crazy ideas at this point as well. She told boy A that she was going through a divorce and that it was because of boy A that she was going through a divorce. She said that she wanted to be with him instead of her husband. She even said to boy A that sex with him was better than sex with her husband because her husband, quote, only liked to do butt stuff. Yeah, I'm not kidding you there. That is actually what she said to boy A. So then boy A started bragging to all of his friends that Mrs. Carmack was getting a divorce because of him and that sex with him was better than with her husband. He was bragging about his sexual encounters with Mrs. Carmack. And it's just crazy to me how no one really seems to be keeping this relationship a secret. Mrs. Carmack doesn't really seem to care who finds out about what she is doing. And things continue to escalate very quickly. Boy A and Mrs. Carmack would now text, message constantly, have phone calls. They are in constant communication all of the time outside of school hours. Hayley also started to send boy A provocative photos of herself, which did include fully nude images of herself. She would also describe boy A as, quote, her baby, which is disturbing on so many levels because he is a baby. He's a child. It's, makes your skin crawl. She also started to send boy A money for gifts, which again is wrong on so many levels. This is so concerning because again, it's almost like she is paying him to stay in a relationship with her. At least that is kind of how I interpret it. It's like she's paying him to keep quiet, paying him to be complicit. On top of all of this, the sexual encounters, or rapes, should I say, started to become more and more aggressive and violent because Hayley was now aggressively raping boy A. She would reportedly dig her nails into boy A's back every time she orgasmed, leaving deep scars and scratches that probably were bleeding. And we don't know how okay boy A was with this, but again, he's underage, so he can't consent to this. And it seemed like Hayley was doing this as in almost marking her territory. But what just really, really breaks my heart is that boy A almost saw these scars and scratches that he now had. He saw them as something to be proud of. He started taking photos of all of the scratches on his back, and he would show these images to his friends of his scratches and scars as almost bragging that he's having sex with Mrs. Carmack. And more people are now finding out about this relationship between teacher and student. Hayley even started going with boy A to his friends' houses, which again, I am baffled by. So boy A would obviously go to his friend's house, hang out, but he would bring a teacher with him. Now you would assume that the parents are not home of whoever's house they are going to, but apparently Hayley and boy A were caught having sex in the driveway of one of boy A's friends' homes. And I'm like, wow, so they've actually been caught now having sex. Now, I just read that they were caught in a driveway having sex. Now I would assume it was in a car, not in public. Literally out in public for everyone to see, but who knows? But the fact that they have now been caught having sex again blows my mind that it was still able to go on. And the fact that Hayley was so bold to do this at another student's home is even crazier. And what I find really, really strange is that Hayley lives alone in an apartment, but Hayley is not taking boy A back to her apartment, at least as far as we're aware. And that's just really strange to me that she's having sex with boy A in such public places with other people around, with other people that could possibly catch them, walk in. So it's like, does she have an element of that she wants to be caught, that she wants other people to see her having sex? Is that another thing that gets her off? I don't know. So this relationship continues to go on, and as time is going on, boy A is actually becoming more conflicted about this relationship, which does not surprise me. The novelty has worn off, and it's almost settling in now that he's having sex with an adult and he's only a child. And this teacher as well is in a position of power. It must have been messing with his head and traumatizing him in so many ways. But this next part that happens is probably one of the craziest things in this whole case, because boy A, he's very conflicted about what is going on, and after deliberating for some time, he decides to come clean to his dad. He decides to tell his dad everything about his whole relationship with his teacher. Now, I am not quite sure about boy A's living situation. All we know is that boy A's dad, a man named Mark, he was a single parent and he was living alone with boy A. Now, we don't know about boy A's mom. Was she in the picture? Did she have some custody? We just don't know. We only know about boy A's dad, Mark. And all we know is that boy A decided to go to his dad and open up to his dad about the abuse that he is going through. I mean, I'm sure that boy A didn't phrase it like that, but as a parent, if your child comes to you and says, "Hi dad, I'm kind of in this awkward situation where I'm kind of in a relationship with my teacher and I'm having sex with my teacher," I'm sorry, any parent would be like, what the actual hell? Why the hell is a teacher abusing my child? So boy A came clean to his dad about all of the sexual abuse. But how did boy A's dad react? Well, he didn't react how any other rational parent would react. Was he angry? Was he upset? Did he go to the police? Did he want to go and storm the school and confront the teacher? Well, it was none of the above. The way Mark reacted was how no rational, reasonable parent would react. Boy A's dad, Mark, didn't seem to care one little bit. His reaction was basically, "Oh, well, my son is a teenage boy now. He's going to have sex anyway. What can I do about it?" And this is where I want to scream, because we are not talking about a teenager just having sex with another teenager. We are talking about a teacher, an adult teacher in a position of power, grooming and abusing a child. That's not sex. How can his dad be okay with this? How can he have that attitude? But the dad, Mark, goes one step further. He actually says that, well, if they're going to have sex, I would rather they have sex in my home so I can keep an eye on them. I think we all just need to pause for a second. Who is this man? Who is this man? He is allowing an adult teacher into his home to rape his child. That is what he is saying. How messed up is that? I feel so sorry for boy A. And what really breaks my heart is that boy A was conflicted over this relationship that he was having with his teacher. And he went to his dad for guidance, for help. And the message that his dad has sent him is that this is okay, that there is nothing wrong going on. Boy A's dad is sending him the message that this is not abuse. And it completely invalidates everything that boy A is going through. And this probably left him even more confused and more conflicted. I'm just truly lost for words. So the relationship continues on for a little bit longer now. Boy A continues to have sex, or should I say be raped by his teacher, now in his own home, because his dad has opened up his home to his son's abuser. But we now get to December of 2023, which is a few months after this twisted relationship began, which is crazy when you think about it. Like, this has been going on for a very long time, but it still is only a few months and so much has happened. And thankfully, this is where things actually start to catch up with Hayley, because she has been getting away with this for far too long. Because on the 7th of December 2023, another student at Lakeway High School seemed to be completely fed up with this so-called relationship between Mrs. Carmack and boy A. They could see that it was grooming, that it was abuse, and they were fed up of the teacher getting away with this. And this is when the student decided to report Mrs. Carmack. So the student went to the school resource officer, a man named Brian York, and the student told Brian York about everything, because this relationship was not secret whatsoever. So many students knew exactly what was going on. And as you can imagine, the school resource officer was beyond shocked by what they were hearing, which actually does surprise me, because I'm like, every single teacher, or at least most of the teachers in that school, were aware of Mrs. Cormack and her inappropriate behaviour towards students, about how she dressed inappropriately, about how she had been called out by the principal that she was inappropriate with students. Rumours had been flying around this school for a very long time. So this resource officer, everyone in this school should have already known what was going on. But anyway, the resource officer starts digging into what the student has confessed to. The student said that they had evidence to back back up what they were saying. And this student showed the resource officer the photos that boy A had of all of the scratches and the scars on his back from when he'd had sex with Mrs. Cormack. And these images had been making their way around the school. So this is when the resource officer, Brian York, he didn't mess around. He started digging more into all of this, and he did go straight to the police. And the police thankfully took it seriously straight away. They started their investigation. They went to the school. They started interviewing witnesses. They tried to piece together everything, like when it started, who else could be involved. The police learned all about Hayley's inappropriate behavior towards students, how she dressed inappropriately, that she would flirt with a lot of the students all of the time. The police also learned that Hayley had received many warnings from senior staff members about her behavior, and she was ordered to stop. But she didn't, which again begs the question, why was she not fired then? And they did ultimately learn that Mrs. Cormack was indeed having sexual encounters with boy A. So given the fact that they now had all of this information, the police go and talk to Hayley inside of her classroom. And they do try to be discreet about this at first. They don't want to spook her and stop her from talking. All they say to Hayley is that they've heard that there's some rumours going around school that she is communicating with a student outside of school hours. And that is it. They literally don't say anything else. And they say to Hayley that it's not a crime to communicate with a student, but they would like to look at her phone just to make sure that everything was above board. And Hayley responds, absolutely not. She denies communicating with a student outside of school hours, and she refuses to let the police look at her phone. So the police had no choice but to leave Hayley alone at that point. However, a few days later, they return with a warrant for Hayley's phone. So they take Hayley's phone and send it away for forensic investigation. And as you can imagine, as the investigation was going on, rumors and gossip started to spread around this school like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about what this teacher had done to her student. And unbelievably, there were other students in the school praising boy A for what had happened to him, giving him high fives in the corridors, basically celebrating that he had been raped by a teacher. And I know that they wouldn't have seen it like that, but that is where it is just so messed up, because that is the reality of what was happening. And it's just horrible that the culture of some high schools can be like this, but not even just high schools. The culture of society can be like this. There is such double standards of how different predators are treated depending on if they are a man or a woman, because the predator in today's video is seen as a young, hot, attractive teacher, and she has targeted a 16-year-old boy. That is seen as, okay, good for you, you're having sex with this hot teacher. But if it was the other way around, if it was a man that had targeted a 16-year-old girl, the culture would be so different. And it's just complete double standards. We need to keep the same energy. It doesn't matter, man or woman, they are still pedophiles, they are still predators. Hayley has groomed, manipulated, and assaulted a child on multiple occasions. And that should be how it is seen, because that is the reality, and it should be that black and white. So it is around 10 days later now. We are nearing the end of December, and the police have finally finished their forensic investigation on Hayley's phone. And they have so much evidence on her phone. They find all of the messages between the two of them. They find all of the nude images that Hayley was sending of herself to boy A. And they had all of the nitty-gritty details of their relationship, of Mrs. Cormack's abuse. And the police finally felt like they had enough evidence to arrest Hayley. But there was one problem. Hayley had gone on the run. She had left the state and she had now fled to Texas. She had family out in Texas and she had fled to Texas basically hoping to outrun the law. She also wanted to hide herself away because everybody in her local community were talking about her and she couldn't take the shame. But what is more unbelievable is on her way to Texas, on her way to fleeing the state, she made one more stop at boy A's home. And of course, boy A's dad welcomed her in the home. She wanted to say goodbye to boy A one last time. Now, whether this was a sexual encounter, we will never know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. And speaking of the dad, Mark, it wasn't too long until the police found out about his participation in all of this. They found out that boy A's dad, Mark, had basically been covering up for Hayley and allowing a teacher to assault a student, which is obviously completely illegal. He was allowing Hayley to sexually abuse his son who is underage, and a teacher. This is also a crime. The police also learned that Hayley had gotten other students involved in her master plan, that she had other students on guard as lookouts whilst she raped a student. The police were actually realizing how serious and how big this all was and how many people were involved in covering up for Hayley. Now, obviously, we are not blaming the students who were guards and lookouts. They are victims as well. They were manipulated into all of this. We are blaming the adults here and boy A's dad, Mark, and of course, Hayley herself. So police knew that they needed to track Hayley down ASAP. So days later, now January 2024, the police put out a warrant for Hayley's arrest. They clearly figured out that she was in Texas with family. So the Missouri police and the Texas police coordinated, and Hayley was finally tracked down, arrested, and extradited back to Missouri. And once she was in Missouri, she received a whole host of charges. She was charged with first-degree endangering the welfare of a child, second-degree statutory rape, having sexual contact with a student, fourth-degree child molestation, and 7 counts of distributing pornographic material to a minor. Hayley was then indicted by a grand jury. Her bond was set at $250,000, so she actually was held in custody awaiting trial. And unbelievably, this is when the local school district came out to defend her and said that she was innocent until proven guilty, which, yes, technically she is, but it's like, why are you defending this woman? They probably were really hoping that she was innocent because it would look bad on them if she was guilty. Well, too bad. You should have done your job properly. At this point as well, boy A's dad, Mark, was also arrested, which, thank God, he should not be let off lightly either, because as soon as he found out about this abuse, he should have gone straight to the police and that should have been the end of it. But no, it carried on because of him. And the dad admitted to everything that he did. He told the police all about the sexual relationship between his son and his teacher and about the fact that he allowed it to happen. And he was charged with endangering the welfare of his son. And he was also facing prison time. So many months pass. Hayley is behind bars awaiting trial. And we get to October of 2024. And this is when Hayley managed to get herself a plea deal. And it was a very good plea deal at that, because she was facing a lot of charges. She was facing a long prison sentence. Well, that long list of original charges were dropped. Instead, Hayley pled guilty to the much lesser charge of sexual contact with a child. And that was it. So because she only had that one charge, she was only sentenced to 4 years in prison. 4 years in prison. That is not long enough for raping a child multiple times. As a teacher raping her child student multiple times in a classroom, that is not enough. And as for Mark, boy A's dad, he also made a plea deal. And unfortunately, no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find out what his punishment was. Like, I don't understand. I couldn't find out. And trust me, I looked high and low. So I have no idea what has actually happened to boy A's dad. Like, is he in prison? I think I'm going to assume he's not. I reckon he's probably gotten some sort of community sentence or like suspended sentence or something like that. And the only reason why I assume that is because the actual paedophile, the actual rapist, only got 4 years. So he's not exactly going to get much punishment for what he did, is he? At least I don't have much faith that he got much punishment. So who knows? And in the aftermath of this case, so many people were affected and left traumatized. As you can imagine, this whole thing took a huge toll on Hayley's now ex-husband Chance and their 2 daughters. And I just feel so sorry for them, Chance and their 2 daughters. Like, they have been sucked into this. And I just hope that they are doing okay. Boy A was also left hugely impacted impacted by what happened. His identity has obviously not been revealed because of his age. However, he now has to try and process and navigate what happened to him, but not only what happened to him by Hayley, his teacher, but also his dad, who allowed the abuse to continue and almost gave it the okay. And who knows, maybe his dad is in prison. We just don't know. And given everything that has happened to boy A, surely this is going to affect him for years and years to come. So I just really wish the best for boy A, and I just hope he is doing okay as well. And I am very happy to report that Hayley herself, the paedophile, has recently completed a 120-day sex offender treatment program to try and be released early from prison, but her request for parole was denied. Thank God. So Hayley still remains behind bars to this very day, and hopefully she will remain behind bars at least for her whole sentence, which is still not long enough in my opinion, because if she only serves 4 years, she will be out of prison and she will only be 29, maybe nearing 30, which I'm like, she could do this again. Hopefully she'll be on some sort of sex offenders register and never be allowed around children again. Here's hoping anyway, fingers crossed. And I just wish everyone the best who was affected by today's case. The sexual abuse and assault of a child should never be taken lightly, and it's just so wrong and so disturbed on so many levels. So that brings us to the end of today's case. As always, let me know your thoughts, theories and opinions, and don't forget to leave me your case suggestions in the comments down below, because I always want to know what you want to hear next. Thank you again to Midas Merch for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye.